Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. My name is Aaron. I'm delighted to be joined here by Matthew Hurley from the GAA Statsman podcast. We're here to grade every county from A to F based on their performances in the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship this season. So, in other words, obviously, you know, it's not like the best team sort of get A or whatever. It's obviously based on sort of their own performances from the season. Based on sort of what their expectations would have been at the start of the season. We'll basically just be applying skill grades to every county from the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship and the Joe McDonagh Cup teams as well. Just a reminder, we're brought to you by Declan Kirby GAA Star, the best children's GAA book out there in the market at the minute. You can find it on Amazon, Easons, all good bookshops, so make sure to check them out when you get a chance. Matthew, how's things with you? We were just chatting off air there. I suppose it feels a bit strange that I know there's the ladies' final tomorrow and the camogie final the week after, but the inter-county season at men's level anyway is over, and it's odd, all right, because it's the last day of July.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Aaron. Yeah, it's very strange. We're talking off here as well that soccer's beginning and the Jays just ended. I don't know how to feel about that. I know Liverpool are doing well at the moment, but at the same time, GAA is an exciting sport for a reason. But look, the split seasons here. I think from the sort of Star paper out here, Kieran McCarthy was mentioning in his column during the week that look, it's time to go clubbing, as he would say. It's time for players in Premier Intermediate or Senior A or Premier Senior, whatever grade up and down the country, to state their claim in the country, and time for clubs to get the recognition they deserve as well. So that's a positive in itself. There is some arguments from RT more so really that it takes away what the GAA has and gives it to other sports in August and September. But at the same time, I think it's brilliant just to give the club action the recognition it deserves. But I definitely agree with you. It's hard to believe that it's over already in July, and it's hard to believe in July as well. It's kind of terrible weather this week as well. So maybe the GAA season has dragged the weather along with it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's an interesting one, all right. Because I suppose it's something we're not really going to know about until really the years kind of go by. Once we actually get to fully see sort of how the club season goes, and then how the county season goes, the break in between, and everything else, then we'll sort of have more of an understanding then of how the actual split season will work. Well, I suppose we'll crack into it, and we'll be running through every county from the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship. First of all, we'll go in alphabetical order, and I suppose we'll start with, my own county, Dublin. And a disappointing year in the end from a Dublin perspective, finishing fourth in the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship. It's sort of a strange one because we actually finished on the same amount of points in the round robin as Kilkenny and also as Wexford. So we're actually only a point away. If we had gotten a draw against Kilkenny or Wexford, we would have been in a Leinster final. So it's kind of a weird one, really. We had some good performances in the league, beating the likes of Tipperary. We've obviously now seen Matty Kenny step away from his role as Dublin Senior Hurling manager. But what would be your thought process on this one?
I think we were chatting about this last year in regards to Dublin hurling. It's kind of hard to judge them. Are they underachieving or overachieving? I think Shane Downey mentioned that in the Sunday game last year after their quarterfinal loss to Cork. It's even more hard this year because, after a few games, we were thinking, after the Wexford game especially, we were thinking Dublin are in the quarterfinal. They're going to go to an All-Ireland quarterfinal, and it'll be a successful year for Matty Kenny and his team. But then I just think they didn't get enough points, what they needed against Westmeath and Laois especially. They only scored one goal between those two games. One goal in the entire championship. I know they performed pretty well in the Leinster Championship and gave Galway a bit of a scare at times in their last game, but one goal in the entire championship is not good enough. Simply not good enough to reach a quarterfinal, and that's probably the reason why Dublin didn't do it. It's a tough one. I don't know, would you find this harsh, Aaron? I'd give him a D maybe, because of the way the season petered out in the end, the way they didn't score that much in the end against Laois and Westmeath. Yeah, and Kilkenny, in the end, they got absolutely pasted in their game as well. So, judging by that, it was a good performance against Wexford, but most people might have seen it. Even the guys in the Hurling podcast and my podcast would have said as well, Wexford were probably the better team in that game. Dublin just took their chances better. They just wanted it more in that game. And Wexford, it took time for them to wake up, and eventually they woke up. And unfortunately, Dublin were the downer to that. So, I'd give them a D. I don't know what you think yourself, Aaron. Look, it petered out at the end. They only scored a goal between Westmeath and Laois, and ultimately, that's not good enough in inter-county hurling.
Yeah, I've actually gone for a D as well. Funny enough, like I think, like there was some good performances in the league, but yeah, like in the Leinster Championship, like barely scraped a win over Laois. We seen sort of how everyone was really putting up a big win against Laois. Like we just about got over the line there. Similar against Westmeath, once again getting absolutely trashed by Kilkenny, and there was a lot of like optimism for Dublin this year coming in. Like Ronan Hayes was unbelievable in the club championship season for Kilmacud Crokes, but unfortunately, probably didn't produce or for whatever reason just wasn't really at his absolute best there. We couldn't really get good ball into him. Danny Sutcliffe was fairly quiet. So all in all, like there is a good team there. There is good players there, and obviously getting to an under-20 All-Ireland final. Well, I suppose the delayed one from 2020 obviously played in 2021. So there is a lot of positives there, but it's going to be interesting as well. See who the next manager is for Dublin.
It is, yeah. Like I suggested on other podcasts, and I'm sure the people will agree as well. Davy Fitz has his eyes set in Dublin. I know he's at the backroom team of the Cork Camogie team, and he keeps saying on the Sunday game, look, we have a game to look forward to, David All-Ireland final to look forward to, coincidentally, next week. I'd be interested to see if Cork win the All-Ireland next week in Camogie, will Davy go up to Dublin then? Because the big bucks, as we both know, Aaron, it is there. The platforms are there. They have good young players. Dublin need to get the appointment right, though, because Owen O'Donnell recently transferred to the footballers. I don't know, it was just a public stunting or what was it? But Dublin need to get the right manager in. If they get someone uninspiring, let's just say, Owen O'Donnell might just stick with the footballers, and that'll be detrimental to the hurlers because he's one of the best fullbacks in the country, if not the best. So, like, it'll be important to see who Dublin get as manager. I think Davy Fitz is the right fit for that Dublin team. He might get you a Leinster title, might even get you a league title as well, just to steady the ship a small bit, So I think he'd be the right choice. Eddie Brennan, well, you could Brian Cody leaving Kilkenny, he might go down there now. So yeah, I think Davy Fitz, he ticks all the boxes for Dublin. He has to go up there now. Like the team is there. Maybe Con O'Callaghan. If Davy Fitz goes up, will Con O'Callaghan come back? That'll be interesting as well to see. But they have to get an appointment right, whether it be Davy Fitz or Eddie Brennan. They need to get the right appointment, or else players like Owen O'Donnell might just quit the hurling team, and that will not be looking good going forward.
Yeah, I actually ran into Con O'Callaghan, would you believe, earlier. I probably should have asked him, funnily enough. But yeah, kind of bizarre, like just seeing him around the area. But yeah, like I would agree. I think, Davy Fitz or Eddie Brennan, I think, would be the two ideal choices. I would like Liam Sheedy maybe potentially as well. I think there is good managers available, and as we very well know here and with Dublin GAA, there certainly is a lot of quid going around. So, like I'm sure they can entice managers to come in. There's great underage structures. There's a good base of players to work with. You're not too far away. You can compete in Leinster. It's not like, a Laois or Westmeath. Like I've seen Davy Fitz being linked with Offaly, which has been interesting. But we'll obviously have to wait and see what happens there. But I suppose moving on, then we'll discuss Galway. Galway obviously beaten in the All Ireland semi-finals in the end by Limerick. Obviously Henry Shefflin's first season in charge for Galway. An interesting season from Galway. I would give it a success. I do think it's been a decent season from Galway, considering where they were last year, considering that Joe Cannon obviously stepped away. And although Kilkenny produced an unbelievable performance against Limerick, like Galway were leading against Limerick at different points in that game, and I think Limerick were probably more panicked in the All Ireland semi-final than they were in the final. So, I mean, what are you thinking here?
Yeah, I'd have to rate Galway very highly as well because of the progression they made under Henry Shefflin this year. Like, it was always going to be tough for Henry when you think about it. Like Galway, they flattered to deceive really last year. under Shane O'Neill. Like they lost pretty poorly to Waterford, and they lost to Dublin in the Leinster semi-final. Like in fairness to them, they beat Limerick in the league. They put it up to Cork in the league as well. They did very well in the league campaign. I think the only downside was the Leinster final, and I think Kilkenny, really looking back at it, played it down to a T. They played absolutely excellent that day. And when you look at the Leinster group, they didn't lose a game in that. So that has to be a positive as well. I suppose as the championship went on, not necessarily the Limerick game, but the Cork game, I honestly thought Cork lost it more than Galway won it. So that was a bit of a worry for Galway. But I'd agree with you, the Limerick game, Limerick were scared in that game. Throughout the game, like, I don't think Kilkenny actually led for a considerable amount of time that Galway did, really. So that just shows you Galway, they've made some good strides this year. They've got good young players coming through. And Henry, as Joe McCarthy said in the GAA Show podcast recently, this is Henry's team now. He will go into next year and he'll get confidence. Overall, for a grade, I'd probably give him a B, because they're off the A because of their performances against Kilkenny and against Cork. Even though they beat Cork, I thought Cork threw that game away. So honestly, I'd give him a B. Maybe people will argue for an A. I can see their point of view there, but I'd stick with a B because of them two performances in the Leinster final and the quarterfinal.
Yeah, I'd go with a B as well. I think if you were to give an A here, I think it's probably a bit too far-fetched. Like, I do think this Galway side do have improvement in them. I think they can even get better. Like, next season, I think there could be a potential push for an All-Ireland there. And with lads like Joseph Cooney, Conor Whelan, obviously the Burke's in there as well, Aina Murphy in between the sticks, like, they have a very, very good base. And considering it was Henry Shefflin's first year, I think there's been huge improvement there from a Galway perspective. Do you reckon Henry Shefflin sticks around, or do you think maybe he might get a few phone calls from Kilkenny? Maybe he might go up there. What are you thinking?
I don't know, really. Like, I hear he's getting paid very well from the Supermax sponsors, so that could sway it in his direction to stay with Kilkenny. But yeah, it would be enticing, really. I just thought, like, last year he was just waiting for Brian Cody to retire, and then he retires, and he's already built a team with Galway. So he's in a bit of a limbo now. Personally, I think he should do what Liam Cahill did with Waterford last season. I think he should stay with Galway, even though he has missed the boat. He will get the Kilkenny job definitely further on down the line. He still has time. Like, he's a young manager in this day and age. But I still think, well, Michael Fennelly's quit Offaly, maybe Eddie Brennan or Henry or Michael Fennelly's planning something in the background. We don't know. But honestly, I think he should stick with Galway. He definitely should, because he's built the team already. He's got them to a stage where they could compete with Limerick and Kilkenny and all them teams. So, yeah, I still think he should stick with Galway. That's probably ethically right. If he does go to Kilkenny, though, it probably wouldn't surprise me, because it's his dream job. He would have been waiting for that for a long time. But honestly, I don't think he should leave this Galway job, because the way he's developed this Galway team, I think he should keep going. Do what Liam Cahill did last year. Did eventually, when the time is right after that, go to Kilkenny after that. But yeah, I would be surprised if he goes to Kilkenny, but I think he should stick with Galway personally.
Yeah, I'd agree as well. I think you know, that job's always going to be there for him. I think, in my opinion, you know, I think he's a Kilkenny legend, true and true. Like, even if it doesn't work out with Galway, I could still see Kilkenny looking at it and thinking, well, he knows Kilkenny hurling better than anyone, you know, and that Galway job, it's his first job, so he's probably able to make a couple of mistakes sort of early on. But speaking of Kilkenny, they're obviously next on the list, obviously getting to the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship final, producing an unbelievable display against Limerick, scoring 226. They obviously won the Leinster Championship as well. Like, I've gone for an A, which for a Kilkenny side that hasn't won the All-Ireland feels a little bit off, because we look at Kilkenny as this team that have such a history of winning All-Irelands, and, you know, the sort of mini famine that they're on now is going to 8 years come next July if they don't win it then. So, I mean, and obviously you now have Brian Cody stepping away, but at the same time, not many gave Kilkenny a chance at the start of the year, and like, that performance against Limerick was unbelievable.
It was, yeah, and coincidentally, I'd actually give him an A as well. And looking at Kilkenny's support down through the years, they wouldn't be happy with that. Brian Cody wasn't happy at the end of the All-Ireland final after losing, and wishing him all the best in his retirements. What a servant he's been to inter-county hurling. What a man, what a legend. But it'd be tough for to follow low for Kilkenny, who'll come in. Eddie Brennan looks pretty primed to get that job. Michael Fenley's quit Offaly, so it'll be interesting to see there. But when you look at Kilkenny, even at the end of last year, I was thinking after the Cork game, that's honestly one of the worst Kilkenny teams I've ever seen. Like, a poor enough Cork team got over the line against Kilkenny, and I was thinking, where are they going to go from here? Brian Cody, I thought he was tarnishing his legacy a small bit at the end of last year, but then he comes back this year and reaches an All-Ireland final. And on in my words, actually, in my GA Statsman awards, actually, I actually gave Brian Cody Manager of the Year, and probably I'd stick by that, because what he did with that Kilkenny team after the 2021 campaign, when no one expected them really to reach the All-Ireland final, I think it's no short of remarkable. This is a Kilkenny team in transition, and Brian Cody brought them really to the pinnacle, and they could have beaten Limerick on any other day. Like, it was a case of, what more could they have done to win the All-Ireland? Because that Limerick team was just superb. They couldn't do anything about Limerick's performance. They performed to their best of their ability. So I'd definitely give them an A. They've won Leinster. They got pretty close to Limerick. I think it was nearly mission accomplished. They nearly did it, but not quite. But I think Brian Cody has left this Kilkenny team in a very good state. And the manager following up will have not a big job in his hands now as last year, because the team has progressed and they know what it's like to get to an All-Ireland final and to challenge Limerick. So I think the team is in a very good state.
What were your thoughts on Brian Cody retiring? Obviously, a legend of the GAA, the best manager of all time, in my opinion, in Gaelic games history. The GOAT of Gaelic games, you could very much call that. But I suppose, what were your thoughts on the retirement? Like, personally, I thought he would have stuck it out for another season, because I think Kilkenny aren't too far away potentially winning an All-Ireland. And I think if there was a slip up from Limerick, as unlikely as that sounds, I feel like Kilkenny might be the team that are best placed to potentially capitalise on that. But what were your thoughts on Cody's retirement?
Yeah, it's a strange one. I thought he'd stay on. I definitely thought he'd stay on. Even the reaction after the All-Ireland final, it was disgust really at losing to Limerick, despite the brilliant performance from Kilkenny. I was thinking, he's out for revenge next year. He's definitely going to stay. And even when the rumours were circulated during the week from a certain tweet or something, roads on the street, I was just like, how can I believe this? Because it happens nearly every year. Brian Cody says, or someone tweets, Brian Cody's going to leave, this is his time, and then it doesn't happen. And I was thinking this would be going around the same lines. But then when the news officially broke out, I was just in shock. I really was in shock. I know he's 68 years of age, but I thought there was a lot more to give from Brian Cody. And look, he didn't necessarily win an All-Ireland at the end. Like, that Limerick team was superb. But as I said previously, he's left that Kilkenny team in a great state. They have young players coming through. They have great players of the under-20 team that won the All-Ireland, let's not forget, against Limerick. They performed very, very well in the All-Ireland final. It was a case of, what more could they have done to win it? So I think he's left them in a very good state. It was just shock when he left. It really was shock. And he owes them a hurling nothing. He's given us that great Kilkenny team in the late 2000s. And he's brought the game to a whole new level. That Kilkenny team will never be forgotten. What a team it was. And to go on the way he did for 24 years of management. What a superb achievement. That you don't know how he dedicates all his time to hurling. I don't know how his wife feels in this, but he will get relaxation now, and he'll have to put the feet up now. Finally, after 24 years, it's incredible. But best luck in his retirement anyway. And as regards to the news, I was in total shock. I think you were in shock, Aaron, and I think the whole GA community was in total shock.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it was one of them, like, when it happened, when you heard the news, it was kind of like, oh, it's actually happened, because that's been the discussion for the last, like, as far back as 2013. I remember even when Clare, or when Kilkenny lost, I think it was the Cork, I think maybe or I remember they lost in the qualifiers, And I remember like he was being interviewed after, and there was so many rumors floating around that maybe Brian Cody was going to step away then. You know, like that was 9 years ago. Like, so it's kind of been happening nearly every year. Like when they won the All Ireland in 2016, or sorry, 2015, you're thinking, geez, maybe he might step away now. Like maybe now is a good time to step away. So it is kind of mad. Like it was one. It kind of reminded me a bit of when Alex Ferguson left. Sir Alex Ferguson, I should say, left Manchester United. It was kind of like, Jesus, it's actually official. Do you know that way? Like it's not. This isn't rumors. You know, it's actually happened. So, yeah, kind of mad. Really, it's going to be interesting to see what he does next as well. Like, does he go into punditry? Maybe unlikely. He is very, very private. You know, is he going to write a book? I don't know. Like, I'm sure that would make, you know, it'd probably be one of the best selling GAA books of all time. But then again, he's done none of that up till now, so it's hard to know what he does do next. He probably just going to relax and do nothing really, like all of us.
Exactly. That's the way. But as I mentioned there, he wouldn't have the time really in 24 years. Take that to consideration as well. He wouldn't have time to write a book. He wouldn't have time to deal with the media or such. I honestly don't think I'd agree with you. He isn't the sort of media person. He wouldn't go on the Sunday game, in my opinion. So yeah, I'd say definitely write a book, and I'd definitely buy it. Definitely. He's just a legend of the game, and yeah, he deserves that recognition and definitely deserves that tribute. Really, what a manager he was. Maybe he'll make an RT documentary at Christmas. Maybe, you know. So best of luck to whatever he does anyway. But whatever he does, I think everyone will tune into a documentary or read a book or whatever. If he goes into punditry, it'd be very interesting to see if he has any opinions on Davy Fitz or whatever. If Davy Fitz and Brian Cody were the same pundit chairs, that would be interesting. That'd be very interesting, though. Like it'd be like football in old days with Joe Brolly, Pat Spillane, and Colin O'Rourke bickering. This time we have Cody, Fitzgerald, and a few others will bring Lucknan back, and you have the dream team. You know, so that'd be very interesting to see that. And yeah, make it happen, RT. It'll bring up the viewers, definitely, and you'll get a lot more plaudits over this if you get Brian Cody and Ger back in the chair.
Yeah, no, he's gonna be highly sought after. Make no mistake make no mistake about that from RTE, from Sky, from everywhere. And if you did have him, Davy Fitz, and Liam Sheedy as well, like let's not forget there's a bit of a rivalry between them two down the years. Like it would be very interesting to listen to anyway. Like even if they did a podcast or something like that, like it'd be very, very fascinating. But I suppose moving on, we have Laois, and obviously very disappointing year from a Laois perspective. They were relegated down to the Joe McDonagh Cup, I suppose, producing the Great Escape the last couple of seasons, but their luck has ran out, and there was a few okay performances in there. I thought they'd done well enough against Dublin, although Dublin were fairly poor in that game, and then obviously losing to Westmeath in that relegation decider when they'd sort of got the better of Westmeath in the last couple of seasons. So what have been your thoughts on Laois this year?
Honestly, Aaron, it's an outright F really for Laois. I know Cheddar Plunkett came in, he tried to pick up the pieces and all that, but look, with the players Laois have, Paddy Purcell, Ross King, they should be doing a lot better. And especially the fact they got hammered by Westmeath in the last game, that really put the nail in the coffin for Laois. And we were thinking, look, Laois were performing very, very poorly throughout the 2 years, really. And we were thinking they're going to put their act together against Westmeath when the time was right. And they just didn't. They didn't turn up whatsoever. And they're relegated. And to be honest, like against Antrim last year, they kind of got lucky to a certain extent. So, look, they got the just desserts at the end. They got relegated and deservedly. So, I don't know, is this a bit harsh for Laois fans? But look, for me, it's a definite F because of the way they performed this year, as well as the way they got relegated as well, getting hammered to Westmeath, a team that would be on the same trajectory as them.
Yeah, like I do have a D here for Laois. Like I think it's one of them, in my opinion, where they like I do think they've good players. Like they, you know, obviously Stephen Picky-Maher is a great hurler. Patrick Purcell's obviously very, very good, but it's one of them where I just don't know like what the expectation is from a Laois perspective, and it's probably similar with Westmeath as well. Although Westmeath have certainly made strides, and you know you see this with a lot of teams that come up to the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship in their first season. you know, like they're very competitive, they're up for it, you know, they're fighting for everything. But I feel like as time goes on, the confidence kind of gets waned out of sides because they're getting absolutely trashed week on week. And I think the belief just goes for a lot of teams. Like when Carlow came up to the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship, I remember they gave a lot of very, very good displays, and they got relegated and haven't been able to come back. Antrim at the start of the league, I remember last year, looked very, very good. But as time went on, you know, they sort of faded quite a bit as well. So it's one of them things, in my opinion, with Laois where, you know, it's probably a good thing, actually, in my opinion, they go down to the Joe McDonagh, because I think they can rebuild. I think it'll be good for the supporters as well. You know, I think they'll be thereabouts in the Joe McDonagh next year. Make no mistake about that. And look, you know, you've seen what happened the last time they won the Joe McDonagh Cup. They went on and beat Dublin, got themselves to an All-Ireland quarter-final. So, you know, I don't think all is lost. Like, they have a couple of good underage players coming through at the minute as well. There is one player who's gone out of my head right now, who I know has done very, very well at under-20 level the last couple of seasons. A lot of hype around him. But, yeah, like, I suppose all in all, for Laois, it has been a disappointing year, though. Make no mistake about that.
It has been, yeah. And look, I know it is harsh, and I can see your point of view of it, deep for Laois, but just the way they got relegated against Westmeath, like, you know, it was very, very disappointing for them. You would have thought there'd be a performance there for Laois, but you say they'll do well in the Joe McDonagh Cup. I'm not so sure, to be honest. Like, you have Offaly there, who would have a pet in their step. Carlo, who are improving with Chris Nolan and Martin Mouse-Cavan in the team. Kerry, if Stephen Belumpy stays around, he's building a team. So them teams will be well up for it. I'm not sure Laois, like after the last few years, the highs of the last few years, it's quite hard to raise their game again, if you know what I mean. You look at Paddy Purcell, you look at Ross King, Stephen Ficky-Barr, in fairness, is a new player now. But them two in particular, King and Purcell, like, they've kind of reached the top. It's kind of like when you think about it, Carlo, a few years in the football, a few teams in hurling, maybe Antrim in the league to a certain extent as well. They've reached as far as they can go, and then all's lost after that. So, yeah, we'll have to see about Laois, but honestly, it's an early prediction now, but I think they could struggle in the Joe McDonagh Cup next year.
Yeah, that's an interesting point of view. Like, I think they still have enough to be up there. I think a lot depends maybe on Offaly, maybe who comes in there as manager, and then as well, I think you're looking at Kerry, and I'm sure they won't be too far away. Carlo had a strong enough finish last season, but James Duggan was actually the player I was thinking of there, and he's a highly talented player coming through the ranks there at Laois at the minute. So maybe with him on board next season, he could be, you know, a very, very good player. But moving on from that, we have Westmeath, and we were speaking there obviously about Laois getting relegated, obviously losing to Westmeath. Westmeath's first season in the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship will be there again next year. I think a very good season for Westmeath. I mean, it wasn't the best league campaign by any standards, but in the Leinster Championship itself, I mean, some very, very good performances. They drew at Wexford, which was extraordinary. You know, they gave Kilkenny a fair rattle as well for about 50 odd minutes. So I think all in all, like a very good season from a Westmeath point of view.
I think an excellent season, and even in the league, they got promoted. They did as much as they could, really. They got promoted from the Division 2A. So,
yeah, sorry, actually, I was thinking of last season now.
Geez, trying to don't play your friends in Westmeath are in bad form now.
Yeah, yeah. I'll have to give some stick back after all the stick I get about Dublin, you know. So
release your anger. That's the main thing, right? That's the main thing. But honestly, I'd have to give Westmeath today. They've been absolutely superb. Joe Fortune. The only downside really was him having a go at Buff Egan during the Kerry game. If you've seen these stories or whatever, but saying, you don't belong in a hurling game or whatever. But other than that, Joe Fortune's done an unbelievable job at Westmeath. He's done an absolutely outstanding job. And the result against Wexford, it kind of showed, like, we had a discussion maybe match week 2 or match week 3 on your podcast that these sorts of games involving Laois and Westmeath were kind of meaningless. Westmeath proved against Wexford that these are meaningless games, and they performed absolutely outstanding. And the only game they performed pretty poorly was the Galway game. They put it up to Kilkenny, they put it up to Dublin, and against Wexford they got a point, and they hammered Laois. I know Laois were poor, but Westmeath were superb in that game as well. And Killian Doyle was one of the top scorers in the championship with, I think, 57 points overall. Superb tally from him. Niall Mitchell was very good. So Tommy Doyle at full back. Look, they have some excellent players at Westmeath, and they did absolutely outstanding. You look at Davy Glennon as well, the former Galway player, excellent as well. He had a hat-trick in the league final against Down as well. So very good season for Westmeath, excellent performance, and I'd give him an A. I know they only got 3 points, but you have to take into account they're only promoted from the Joe McDonagh Cup and only been in Division 2A for the last few years as well. So outstanding from Westmeath.
Yeah, I've gone for an A as well. I think after their performances in the Leinster Championship, getting a draw against Wexford, like I think, you can't really, and as you said, they were actually promoted. I was thinking back to 2020, but they're obviously promoted from the league as well. So yeah, faultless season, and you can't really disagree with that. Plenty of comments flying in here, so much appreciated. Kieran says Tyrone A, surely. Yeah, like obviously won the Nicky Rackard Cup, so I mean you can't disagree with that. We will only be grading the senior sides from the All Ireland Senior Hurling Championship and the Joe McDonagh Cup as well, because just the knowledge unfortunately just isn't there really when you start kind of going below Christy Ring, in my opinion anyway, unfortunately. But yeah, you can't disagree. Like they won the Nicky Rackard Cup, so it is 100% A. Porter says missed the start. What grade did the Tip Hurling get? We will get onto that in a brief moment of time when we go through the Munster teams. But speaking of Wexford, they obviously drew with Westmeath in that game, and a weird sort of season as well. Like got to the league semi-finals, looked all right at different times. Obviously, Dara Egan coming in his first season in charge of Wexford. They obviously go and beat Kilkenny in Nolan Park, which was a huge result, a result that very much surprised everyone. And they gave Clare a fair rattle as well in that quarter-final game. So, like Wexford did actually improve a bit from last season under Davy Fitz. So what were your thoughts on Wexford this year?
Yeah, I thought they played pretty well. When you look at it, like against Clare in the quarterfinal, they could have easily won that game. And we were thinking, with about 10 minutes or so to go, Wexford are going to be in All Ireland semi-final after drawing to Westmeath. Maybe at some stage we do have to credit Westmeath because of the way they played against Wexford. And Gary Dorn for the Wexford podcast actually mentioned that their last goal, Westmeath's last goal, I think scored by Derek McNicholas, was in fact a square ball. So maybe Wexford were kind of unlucky there. They're not using excuses for Wexford at all. Like drawing against Westmeath is really a bit of a disgrace, really, for Wexford hurling. But at the same time, they beat Kilkenny in Nolan Park. Superb achievement from them. They trashed Kerry. They did well in the league, as you mentioned there. Against Dublin, on another day, they could have won that game. So it might seem overboard here, but I'd actually give them a B. I know they performed poorly against Westmeath. They lost to Dublin. They drew against Galway when not performing particularly well. But at the same time, they performed excellent against Kilkenny. They performed excellent against Clare. They beat Limerick in the league. Those were All Ireland semi-finalists. So Wexford aren't too far. And the job Dara Egan had after Davy Fitz kind of left Wexford on a sour note last year. He did absolutely brilliant to, galvanise these players. And Lee Chin had an outstanding year, to be fair to him. Conor McDonald played well in some games. Oisin Pepper coming through the ranks as well. They have nice young players coming through. That's the main thing for this Wexford team. So, I'd give him a B. Most people would probably give him a C, but I'd be sticking with my B because of their performances against Clare and Kilkenny.
Yeah, I'd be going with a C. Like, I know they did get that result against Kilkenny, which was a huge, huge win. But, I think it was a good season, but it was probably getting to a quarter final of the All Ireland's probably something that, they would have expected, probably, give or take. I think once you get into that top three, a quarter final, you're in the quarterfinals then. So, the only teams they had to worry about was Dublin, really. And obviously they lost to Dublin, fair enough. But, to win in Kilkenny and get that result was absolutely massive. Make no mistake about that. Moving on to the Munster Senior Hurling Championship then. We'll start off with your own county, Cork. Beaten in the quarterfinals, much like Wexford, obviously losing to Galway. Played well in that game. It's a weird one with Cork. Got to the league final as well, but they were absolutely trashed. They've had some good performances. Started the round robin in Munster very badly, but then recovered brilliantly. They've obviously got a new manager coming in now in Pat Ryan. So, what were your thoughts on Cork this year?
Yeah, it's a tough one to judge because the start of the round robin, as you said, was it was awful performances. Like, Clare could have even beat us out of the gate, really, in the second game. Limerick were much the better team against us. We could have no complaints. And the only real good point, really, in Cork season, when you look at the grand scheme of things, was the Waterford game. That was an unexpected win in Walsh Park. Tipperary game, honestly, we'll get on to Tipperary in a minute, but I don't know where that Tip team is going. It was an absolute shambles this year. So it was kind of expected Cork would beat them anyway. Personally, I'll give him his C. I'm edging towards maybe a C or a D with this Cork team, because as you all already know, as everyone knows in the game of hurling, Cork's expectation is so high. So high. Especially after winning 30 All-Irelands, you know. And to go out the way we did against Galway, when we were the better team. And as Anna Geary mentioned on the Sunday game at half-time, we missed 2-11 of chances. Like, at this level, that's not good enough. It's not good enough for a Cork team to have that scoring rate. And hopefully Pat Ryan turns around. I think he will. I think he's an excellent coach. He won the under-20s 2 years running. He's done excellent work with Sarsfields, and he will get a lot out of these players. And there's no messing with this guy. He's like Keith Ricken in football. Unfortunately, Keith had to step down, but he's kind of like a Keith Ricken or John Cleary in football. He takes no messing. He will get stuck into the players. So, yeah, I'd definitely be optimistic for the future with him in charge. But for now, I'd give him a C. Maybe that's being nice. Maybe me being biased as a Cork hurling fan, maybe it's easily a D because of the way we played against Limerick and Clare. But look, that performance against Waterford and our performances most of the time in the league edged it towards a C slightly.
Yeah, I've gone for a C as well, but it is a hard one, all right. Like, it's kind of one of them where it's not cut and throat, like in some ways, because, you know, like, they had some very bad performances, like, but they also had some very good performances, you know, like, obviously getting the result against Tipperary right at the end, beating Waterford as well, which is a huge victory considering considering how good Waterford looked at that moment in time. Kean says here, are you going to do Carlo? Yeah, we will be discussing Carlo from the Joe McDonagh in a little period of time. Orlally says D for Cork. And what are your thoughts? Obviously, like, you've seen Liam Sheedy's comments there as well, where he was saying, like, there is an All-Ireland in this team and they're very good players. Like, what do you think? Like, there is good underage structure there. Like, he obviously won the under-20 All-Ireland in 2021. So, you know, like, there is a lot of good players coming through, a lot of good young talent. You know, a lot of very seasoned veterans in the side already, like Patrick Horgan, Dara Fitzgibbon. But what do you think? Is there an All-Ireland in this Cork team in the next couple of years?
I'll have to be frankly honest, Aaron. I wish I could say yes, but honestly, no. I don't see it. Not at this moment in time, no. I do think Pat Ryan will change things in the dressing room, the mentality in the dressing room with this team. But right now, with this group of players, with the quality at our Cork Senior Hurling Championship, I watched the game there between Sars and the Rockies, and before that, Glen and Erin's Own. And the quality compared to Limerick or even the Dublin Hurling Championship or the Tip Hurling Championship is way off. Way off. So that's your starting point. The quality isn't there for the punters to see. There is some quality, like Alan Connolly is a decent player. Hoggy, I think, is going way too far into his career, though. I think it's time to him maybe take a bench role. Lots of people are arguing even Horgan should start. He's 34. Like, a lot of people are saying he should start. If that's the mindset from Cork fans, there's no All-Ireland in this team. Simply. Like, we have to believe in the likes of Alan Connolly, though. We have to believe in the youngsters coming through. And if they don't believe in the youngsters starting out above a 34-year-old, I mean, where are we going? You know? So I just think Limerick are far ahead of us. Kilkenny, Tip will improve under Liam Cahill. Waterford are bound to improve next year if they get a bounce off a new manager. Clare are constantly improving. Galway have a new team now in Henry Shefflin. So it'll be so hard for Cork to win an All-Ireland in the next few years. And hopefully Pat Ryan changes things. I think he will. The mentality, the dressing room, the strength and conditioning, the skill level as well. Because the skill level in the Cork Hurling Championship especially is way off, considering when you look at Limerick, for example, Clare Hurling Championship, Dublin Hurling Championship, those championships are way ahead of Cork at the moment. That's the worrying thing. Pat Ryan, I think, will change things, but for the next 2-3 years, I don't think there's another. I think Kilkenny and Limerick should share between those because they're way ahead of us at the moment.
Yeah, Orlally says, I don't think we're anywhere near an All-Ireland, to be honest. Limerick, Kilkenny, Clare, top three. Yeah, you would have to say that at this moment in time, especially after looking at last season. Porter says very good analysis. Is it 18 years and counting for Cork? Yeah, not that anyone's counting, but 18 years, the longest drought that actually Cork have ever been on in terms of not winning the Liam McCarthy, which is, I suppose, kind of crazy, really, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And even the performance against Galway, I know we seemed like the better team, but the way we threw it away, with needless wides, and you have to think, like, I know we won 220s in a row, but you have to question where them young players going. Like, I think if I was chatting to a few people in the past few weeks, Brian Turnbull, where's he gone? Shane O'Regan, these types of players that were supposed to be world beaters in the next few years, and they're gone off the scene completely. Your man Evan Sheehan from the Peershig as well as another example. Excellent player at club level at times and at underage. Where has he gone? So there is the question, where are these young players gone? That's probably down to the coaching in Cork. I think Pat Ryan will fix that. But Kieran Kingston, while he was a nice guy, but I have no disrespect to Kieran Kingston, he had his heart and soul at the Cork Hurling. But honestly, he didn't get much out of them players. And there was no drive within that dressing room. And I think there will be under Pat Ryan. That'll be the interesting thing that will happen next year. But under Kieran Kingston and under John Moyler the past few years, there's been none of that. When you compare it with Henry Shefflin, even I was talking to, I forget who I was talking to though, but even look at Buff Egan's story, the comparison between Henry Shefflin on the sideline and Kieran Kingston, it's huge. Because Henry was just galvanised his team completely, and Kieran arms folded on the sideline, just helpless. So that culture has to go out of Cork as well for us to win the All Ireland. If it doesn't go, we're way off. Simply, we're way off.
Yeah, and I suppose another team that's obviously chasing an All Ireland. Obviously, they won one last in 2013, but is Clare, and I mean, very good season for Clare, it must be said. Obviously, getting to a Munster final, getting to the All Ireland semi-finals as well. Like, obviously, ended on a bit of a sour note, having lost to Kilkenny in the way that they did. But I do think all in all, it has been a very, very good season from a Clare perspective. Like, we all know the talent levels of Tony Kelly, but then, Shane O'Donnell looked very, very good this year. One of his best seasons, and potentially since Clare's All Ireland win in 2013. Lots of very good players coming through, the likes of Mark Rogers as well. So a lot of room for optimism for Clare at the minute, even despite that loss against Kilkenny.
I suppose so, but the last two performances, even against Wexford as well in the quarter-final, they were very poor. And Wexford could have easily won that game. Clare started to only show up in the last 10 minutes. So I know they performed pretty well in the Munster Championship, and not many people, I think only myself and yourself, Aaron, actually predicted Clare would get out of the group. Lots of people were actually predicting them to finish fourth or fifth, despite the quality of players they have, despite the quality that Brian Lohan possesses as a manager. It's a hard one again because of the way they performed in the last two games. A lot of people were predicting a B. But because a lot of people at the start of the season were saying they wouldn't get out of the Munster group, I give them an A. Because of the way they stuck with Limerick throughout the 90 minutes. That's including extra time as well, throughout the game. And that was an outstanding feat in itself for Clare. They topped the Munster hurling group. Most people forget that as well. So an outstanding achievement in the Munster Championship. In the All-Ireland series, they weren't that great. But look, they'll move on next year. They will perform again. And Brian Lohan, again, is building a strong base there with Clare. So I'll give him an A. Maybe it's a bit too nice for Clare. A lot of people will be saying a B. But because of their Munster alone, I'd probably give him an A because of the way people rated them at the start of the year.
Yeah, I go with a B. Like, I do think when you look at the performance versus Kilkenny and obviously the Wexford performance as well, I do think it brings it down. But all in all, absolutely. As you said, it's one of those things. It's all subjective because at the start of the season there would have been a lot of people that wouldn't have rated Clare so highly. But and yourself as well. I've always seen a lot of talent in this Clare team because, first of all, when you've got a player like Tony Kelly in your ranks, it gives you just that extra 5 to 10% that other teams don't have. And when you start getting more from Shane O'Donnell, Davy Fitzgerald in around the middle as well, they've a very, very good side. So I'd go with a B personally, but yeah, Keane says Davy Fitt's going to have an unreal season next year. And Shane says B+ or A- if that's allowed. Yeah. There's no rules here or anything like that, so that's perfectly fine. But yeah, moving on, we've Limerick. I mean, this is an easy one, really. It's definitely an A. You win the All-Ireland. There can't be any complaints about that. And as we've said on previous podcasts before, Limerick had to do this the hardest way possible. I mean, they played Kilkenny when they played at their absolute best. I mean, they played Galway, who, probably give one of their bbest performances of the season. They played Waterford when they were still, really, really up for it and were sort of in really good form at that moment in time. So, A+, whatever is above A, I think you have to give it to Limerick.
Yeah, exactly. What else could you give them? It's kind of expected that Limerick will win the All-Ireland each year. It's kind of like when we were grading Dublin, I think in 2020, or was it Patrick on that video? It's kind of difficult because they've kind of reached the pinnacle nearly every year. And a lot of people would say, oh, they're in line with expectations, so we'll give them a C. But you just can't ignore A, simple as. They were absolutely outstanding. And as you mentioned there, they were put to the pin of their collar against Galway, against Kilkenny, against Clare, against Waterford. When those 2 goals went in for Waterford, they still found a way to win it. When you look at the whole season, only the Cork game was pretty comprehensive victory for them. Even Tipperary put it up to them in the last 10 minutes. They were leading going into the last 10 minutes, and Limerick still pulled it out of the bag. That shows the sign of a great team. And even players like Garrett Haggerty, for example, wasn't having his best year, and then the final he pops up with his whole of 1-5. That's the team Limerick are. That's the standards John Kiley sets, and they've been an outstanding team over the past few years. Paul Kinnerk doing a lot of work in the background as well. So this Limerick team is not going away. They might even win 6 in a row. Hold on to your horses there, Aaron. They're coming for your record there. They're going for the 6 in a row. I'm not sure would you want that, but they're going for it. They're on the right road for it, and it's an undoubted A for Limerick. Absolutely superb team. What else can you say?
Yeah, I mean, and I've enjoyed Limerick's success, to be fair, winning the 3 All-Irelands. And as a Dublin man, I don't like seeing Kilkenny being too successful, because they dominated through my childhood and most of my life. So it's nice seeing a different team coming along and being successful. But as you said there, it might be time to start putting another jersey on, especially when Dublin get knocked out. Whoever Limerick are going up against, I might need to start supporting them, because as you said there, going for, they've won 3 in a row, they've won 4 in the last 5. You think if they didn't have that defeat to Kilkenny, they'd have done the 5 in a row. So they're getting very, very close. Look, it will be tough, because there's a lot of very, very good sides in hurling, as we know, and you'd expect Waterford to regroup. Liam Cahill, obviously, there under Tipperary next year. It's going to be very, very interesting, which we'll obviously discuss a little bit later. Wexford will improve. Kilkenny with a new manager. There's a lot of variables there, but what do you think? Could Limerick be on track to potentially dominate? And do you think they will, outdo the Dubs and potentially win more than 6 in a row? I mean, it sounds crazy, because there's a lot of things that could happen between now and then, but they definitely are on track at the minute anyway.
I'm sure you'd want my answer, Aaron, to be no, because that's the thing Dublin have to keep them going, keep them ticking. But look, I'd say they're on the road for it. They just have the strength conditioning, the way they keep going to the final whistle as well. And Garrett Haggerty, that point epitomised us in the final as well. When there seemed to be, the legs seem to have gone out of that Limerick team, and he still pops up with an outrageous score. That's Limerick. That's an outstanding team right there. And I honestly think they will go for the 6 in a row. Look, when you look at the teams, I think Kilkenny, if Brian Cody stayed with Kilkenny, I think that record would have been under threat, because Cody would have had the determination. But no, I just think this Limerick team, the sky's the limit for them. They have an outstanding base. John Kiley is an excellent coach. They're probably the best team, player for player, all over the field. Licky Quaid, will he go on ages? And a goalkeeper can. Sean Finn is the most consistent player. Barry Nash is improving year and year and year, and he will improve again next year. Mike Casey's come in full back. That's absolutely colossal. Even the defense as well. Dermot Burns, Aaron Gallant's scoring record from playing every game this year, superb. Seamus Flanagan. And to think, they went through this run of the All-Ireland without a 2-time player of the year. You know, that just shows you the strength and depth of this Limerick team. And I just think the sky's the limit for them. My prediction, they're going to win the 6 in a row. They're just an outstanding team. It's hard to look past them. They're just outstanding from 1st to 15th player. And even the players coming on, Conor Boyle and David Reedy, coming onto the pitch. Kyle Hayes can play anywhere. This team is absolutely unreal and will be there for a long period of time. So strap yourselves in, lads. It's going to be a period of Limerick dominance.
Yeah, Orlally says, imagine if someone said this would happen back in 2016-17. Yeah, absolutely mad. Like, I remember, not to rub it in or anything, but I remember Dublin beating Limerick, I think it was in 2015 or 2016 in the qualifiers, you know, and the likes of Dan Morrissey were playing that day, Shane Dowland were playing, you know, so a lot of the players were playing that day. And you even think back, like John Kiley's first season in 2017, they didn't win a championship game. They lost both championship games that they were in, obviously, because there was no round robin. Like, so, you know, it is kind of mad. It shows what can happen if you back your manager, if you get behind it, if you have a process. Right, year one, fair enough, it didn't work. Like, you've a lot of county boards now that are pulling triggers on managers after 1 year, and you know, obviously, you think of Colin Bonner, which, you know, we'll obviously get onto a little bit later. But Dylan also says here the Limerick Hurlers is like Dublin footballers in the 10s winning 2013. Falling short of Donegal in 2014, and then the 6 in a row happened. But I think Clare or Galway can beat Limerick. They were close. And Orlally says Hurling was so competitive until Limerick came along. Now it's like football when Dublin were dominating. And yeah, like with this Limerick side, like what impresses me as well is we know the talent levels are there, but it's that mental aspect of them. I think that's very underrated. Like when the going gets tough, much like the Dubs, you know, there was plenty of times when Dublin put in poor performances. You know, the 2016 All-Ireland final, drawn game always stands out for me. 2015, we were fairly dreadful against Kerry. Both teams were pretty poor that day, but found a way. And the good teams, the great teams, in any sport really, you know, the best athletes, they find a way to pull through. And it's not just because of talent levels, it's also because of the mentality. And I think Limerick have that in absolute abundance, in my opinion.
They do, yeah. They're just an outstanding team, even 1 to 15, the skill level, the strength and conditioning. Like, the thing is, the Kilkenny 2000s team, like I was talking to, I think it was Seamus Brady on either my own podcast or his podcast off air, actually. Who would win? The Kilkenny team in the 2000s under Cody or Limerick? Like, it's different eras, but at the same time, just Limerick, the strength of them throughout the field, the strength and conditioning, skill level, I think they're equal. But strength and conditioning, Limerick would win it hands down because of the way the game's developed. They're just an outstanding team. And another interesting point as well, Kilkenny kind of had it easy around that period because Kilkenny were the only great team around them, maybe Tipperary as well. When you look at Limerick, you have Clare, you have Galway, Cork on their day, that's the thing, on their day, Kilkenny, Waterford on their day as well. You have a few teams there. And Limerick still put them to the sword time and time again, even without Cian Lynch starting in the team, even when he's injured. You know, this team has so much gears to go up on. It's going to be a mystery when they'll finish, but they've been an outstanding team. And I'll be interested to see your thoughts, Aaron. Would Kilkenny in the 2000s win, or this Limerick team currently?
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting question, isn't it? Like, I mean, see, the thing is, the game has changed quite a lot, though, hasn't it? So, I mean, like what Kilkenny were doing back then is completely different to what Limerick are doing now. Like, and you see, like, if you go back and look at the scores of All-Ireland finals in 2005, 2006, 2007, they were far less than what we're seeing now. Like, Kilkenny scoring 226. You know, like a side has never scored that and not won the All-Ireland. Like, there's been teams who scored far less in a final and won the All-Ireland. So it's one of them things where both sides are from different eras. So it's hard, but it is an interesting one. Like with Brian Cody and his pomp and Henry Shefflin there, Eddie Brennan, you know, like TJ Carey, even if you want to go back to him, a young TJ Reid, like so much talent all across the pitch with Kilkenny. It would be, it'd be one hell of a spectacle. It's a bit like, you know, when people say what would happen between Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson, do you know that way? Like, but it's two different eras, so it's hard to really know. Do you know that way?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you see the comparisons even with the Kerry 80s team under Mick O'Dwyer and the Dublin team in the 2010s. Like, it is different eras. I definitely agree with you. Like, gee, if you were to put the two 15s facing off against each other, I think Limerick would win because of the way the hurling game has developed. Like, Waterford lost the final in away to Kilkenny heavily, and they only scored, I can remember this score, they only scored 1-9, and they scored the goal through a lucky free. So it has developed over the years, and Cork performed pretty poorly against Limerick. And what did they score last year? I think it was 120 something anyway, I'm sure, Cork. So you know, that just shows you case in point there that the game has developed. And yeah, it's going to be very hard to you know, to choose, but player for player, skill wise, you probably choose Kilkenny, but strength and conditioning wise, you have to choose Limerick. It depends what a person would rather really in a game of hurling. So I suppose it's down to people's perspectives as well. But if they were to face with two big teams in their full pomp, that would be some spectacle to look forward to. How much would the tickets be? It would be very high anyway, Aaron, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. And Shane says as well, I think the Kerry's 2000s team would beat the Dublin 6-in-a-row team, and I definitely think our 80s team would beat the 6-in-a-row team. I think the 80s team, you know, probably would give the 6-in-a-row side and potentially could win that game. But don't know about the 2000s team personally, in my opinion. Like, there was a few All-Ireland finals that they lost and whatnot, whereas Dublin really capitalised on their brilliance, like winning it 6 times in a row. But it's one of those things where you could have these debates all night long about different teams from different eras and everything else. Like, it is kind of an interesting point of view. Tipperary, very, very disappointing season from their perspective. Lost every game in the Munster Championship. You know, fairly poor league campaign as well. I think they might have got to the league semi-finals, or maybe they didn't, off the top of my head. But generally speaking, quite a disappointing season from a Tipperary perspective. Colin Bonner's obviously now gone. Liam Cahill's coming in there as well, which is fairly interesting. But, you know, while Liam Cahill coming in looks good for the future and looks good for next year, at the same time, like, Tipperary seem to be in quite the mess at the minute.
Yeah, they do. And even the end of the Cork game really summed it up. They were in the game up until, I would say, 20 minutes. And then as the game went on and on and on, you were just saying, where is this Tip team going? Like, it wasn't a case of Cork are winning this monumental game of hurling or anything. Tip were just absolutely awful, you know. And I think the Colin Bonner decision just compounded my grade your F. Simply, you could even go further, because this year has been an utter disgrace for Tipperary. The way they against Limerick and against Waterford, they were pretty good, but against Clare and Cork, it was at times comical what happened with the Tipperary defence, particularly summed up by the point, the third goal, the Tim O'Mahony goal for Cork. Where was the Tip defence? You know, I mean, jeez, you know, Liam Sheedy must have been choking his coffee looking at that. I mean, what was that? Like, we were talking about Liam Sheedy not giving the young players the credit they deserved last year, but at the same time, his teams were organised. You know, I don't know, was it the players just not listening to Colin Bonner, just wanting a out, player power or whatever, or the tactical decisions in the background just weren't there for Tipperary this year? You know, I mean, I know there's a transitional period, but there's a way to lose a game. And Tipperary lost against Clare and Cork, particularly in a really, for Tipperary's standards, it was a disgraceful manner of the way they lost the games. And what happened behind the scenes as well compounded the season. I do think they'll improve under Liam Cahill next year, but for now, it's an outright F. They've been absolutely, for their standards, for winning so many All-Irelands in the past. They were All-Ireland champions in 2019, let's not forget. And they were an utter disgrace this year. And Tipperary fans even walking, Semple Stadium looked like a ghost town during that Cork game. And you could see what happened. You could see why after what happened on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the buy-in wasn't there from the supporters and from the players. Make no mistake about that. Like, and it is an interesting one. Like, obviously, it's Shamie Callan who was injured for the whole of the round robin, but I suppose at the same time he is getting on a bit. Like, so, you know, I don't think they can be relying too much on him to sort of dig them out, you know, all the time, really. And yeah, like, I mean, because you have obviously the McGraths who do so well at club level and you hear about them every week, but then at inter-county level, the same, it just doesn't quite seem to be there. A lot of young lads coming through, like they obviously won, was a back-to-back under-20 All-Ireland titles as well. Do you know that way? So like they've a very, very good team and they've a lot of quality there, but for whatever reason, they just can't seem to get it right at the minute.
It's a strange one, all right, because a lot of people are saying, oh, Cork have the youth players, and people seem to forget Tipperary beat Cork twice in a row, 2 years in a row, in both the Munster Championship and the All-Ireland. So the quality is there for Tipperary. I just think the young players, and Liam Sheedy's at fault for this last year as well, that they kind of brought in the young players too late in a way. And that was really the downside for Tipperary. Like, the only young player we were mentioning on your podcast last year that played regular game time last year was Jake Morris. The rest of the team didn't play at all. There is some positive, like Craig Morgan at cornerback is a decent player enough, but their main players just didn't step up. And you were mentioning the McGraths. I think John was injured this year. Noel, in fairness to them, tried to galvanise the team, but look, the attitude wasn't there. Even Jason Ford performed poorly this year. Like, it was all over the place, and the stuff happening behind the scenes as well. And even looking at their league form, they struggled to beat Laois. Their only big win really was against Kilkenny in the league. They lost every other big game. So they only beat one good team this year, and that was Kilkenny. And that was a lucky win as well. So, you know, it was an awful year, really, for Tipperary. They performed well in patches against Limerick and Waterford, but as an overall year, looking at it in 2022, for Tipperary standards, they were nothing short of a disgrace, really.
Yeah, do you think Liam Cahill will get a tune out of those lads going into next year? And do you think Tipperary could be back up there competing and, I suppose, fighting at the highest level in both Munster Senior Hurling Championship and the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship as well? Like, let's not forget, you know, their history of winning All-Irelands. You know, they're one of the most successful teams of all time in terms of winning All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship. So do you think Liam Cahill could get a tune out of those lads next year?
It's a difficult one because it's kind of like the situation in soccer, for example, Antonio Conte with Tottenham. People say he's a miracle worker. Like, his first year with Waterford, they reached an All-Ireland final. But with this Tipperary team, I think there's a lot of work to be done. I would think there's no better man, no mistake about it. Liam Cahill's an excellent coach. But I do think there's going to be a lot of work integrating these players again. And the stuff that happened behind the scenes as well. I mean, that would... The quality of Munster is kind of getting better and better. Clare are improving. Waterford are bound to improve this year. They kind of got a few harsh enough breaks now this year. Cork under Pat Ryan will improve. Limerick are obviously a god of a team. So this will be hard for Tipperary next year to even get on a Munster. I think the starting point is the league. The way they integrate the players in the league. If they do that correctly, I do think Liam Cahill will do that. If they do that, that's the starting point for Tipperary. They don't necessarily have to get out of the Munster group next year, but just make progress. Don't lose as embarrassingly as he did against Clare and Cork. Just, you know, keep the margins tight to keep the confidence up. That's what Liam Cahill has to do next year. Get the confidence of these players up, integrate the young players, have a good league campaign, and then think about the future. But for now, next year, I think next year's a bit too soon because of the quality of teams in Munster, and they're only going to get better, in my opinion.
Yeah, and then we have Waterford, I suppose, to wrap up with the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship teams. I mean, difficult one with Waterford as well because it was all looking rosy in the garden. They obviously won the league. They looked absolutely brilliant in doing so, absolutely blitzed Cork in that final. Beat Tipperary on the opening day out in the Munster Championship. Looked, you know, not at their brilliant best, but they got the victory. Performed well enough against Limerick, but ultimately, you know, faded away. And then back-to-back defeats to both Cork and Clare, and you know, Clare didn't even have Tony Kelly playing that day. So, you know, very, very odd one with Waterford. Like, so much hype around them. You know, a lot of people feeling that they were the team that was going to stop Limerick, and ultimately, in the end, you know, completely faded and dropped out of the Munster Championship, and you know, didn't even get to play Limerick again.
Yeah, it's amazing how a year changes. We were thinking at the end of that game, that thriller of a game at the Gaelic grounds, oh, we've got 2 more thrillers to come. And then Waterford just go to the championship. Like, that Cork game was so disappointing for Waterford because that was a Cork team on a low ebb, and Cork still beat them in Walsh Park. And that was very, very disappointing for Waterford. Like, the grade is interesting now. Are you counting league as well as championship?
Well, like I don't really know, to be honest. Like I kind of, it's more so I'd like more so their performance in total, I think, in 2022. But at the same time, it is a difficult one with Waterford because they did win the league, but then again, like the league doesn't, like the league means a good bit, I think. But at the same time, if you have a bad enough championship campaign as they had, like I think it kind of cancels it out to a certain extent. In my opinion, I think it will stand to them maybe next year, like obviously getting a piece of silverware, but yeah, you know.
If you're doing it by this is a difficult one. It depends on people's perspective now. If you're doing it by championship, if you're doing it by league as well as that, D, because you have to give them some bit of credit for winning the league as well. They were exceptional in the league. Let's not forget, I know people might have short memories over that, but they were beating everybody left, right, and centre in the league campaign. But in the championship, just things didn't click, particularly in that Cork game, because the first two games against Tip, they turned it on for a short period of time, but they eventually won the game. Limerick, they got 2 late goals at the end. They could have easily won that game if Limerick didn't push on at the end. But it was just the way they performed against Cork and Clare in the last 2 games, which was disappointing for them, especially against Cork after Cork and beaten left, right, and centre by Limerick and Clare their first 2 games. So that was disappointing for Waterford. Austin Gleeson getting sent off compounded that as well. Look, I'll put it this way. If it depends on perspectives. Championships solely it's an F. If it's the whole 2022 D, simple as, because the league form was pretty good for Waterford. But it'll be interesting to see who they get now. I was thinking Eddie Brennan, but look at Brian Cody retiring. He's going to go there now, I'd say. So it'd be interesting. Would it be Derek McGrath? Would it be Davy Fitz? Davy Fitz to come back? We don't know. Or Stephen Malumby from Kerry. Who's to know?
Who knows? Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of odds maybe going in there, but yeah, Brian Cody going to Waterford would be probably the biggest plot twist of the century, really. If he somehow ended up in there, that would be just absolutely nuts. It'd be like Sir Alex coming out of retirement to manage Liverpool if Klopp went away. Do you know that way? Like it'd be absolutely madness. But yeah, no, obviously I don't think either of us can actually see that happening. But yeah, I suppose moving on to the Joe McDonagh Cup sides, then we'll start off with Antrim. Obviously won the Joe McDonagh Cup, which was obviously massive for them. Kerry gave them a fair rattle though, and they were certainly made to work for it. But what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I give Antrim an A here. Undisputed, they won the Joe McDonagh Cup. They did enough in what they were supposed to do, and yeah, they won the Joe McDonagh Cup. They stayed up in Division 1 as well, which was a success for Antrim. After the way they played last year, they had to stay up in Division 1, regain that status, so they did that. They won the Joe McDonagh Cup as well. Mission accomplished for Antrim. Yeah, they were close to Kerry, but maybe people need to give Kerry the credit they deserve as well, because that's not really a hurling county, as we all know, really. Stephen Lumphy coming in new there. So, yeah, they were put to the pin their collar by Kerry, but at the same time, winning the Joe McDonagh Cup and staying in Division 1 has to be an A for Antrim. And Darren Gleeson, sky's delivered for them. There was a bit of worry, would Darren Gleeson go down to Tipperary? The manager and merry-go-round were mentioning again. But now that Liam Cahill's there, they can relax now up in Antrim. He's staying put, and they'll have a good crack at the Leinster Championship next season.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'd go with an A there as well. I think, look, it was obviously tough for them. I mean, they obviously lost one game, obviously getting beat by Kerry right at the end of the league. But as we very well know, that game was meaningless pretty much from an Antrim perspective. Won 5 of their 6 games, done what was very much expected, competitive enough, I'd say, in the league as well. So, yeah, I'd go with an A there as well. We then have Carlow. Interesting season from a Carlow perspective. Like the Joe McDonagh didn't start too well from a Carlow perspective, but they did pick up a little bit of momentum, towards the end of the league in the end. Obviously beat Offaly on the final day, which was a huge result. So what are your thoughts on Carlow this year?
It's interesting. I actually watched them against Down, and I was very impressed with Carlow. The players they have. Mark Mouse Kavanagh was on my podcast previously. John Nolan is an excellent player. Chris Nolan. Now, there's some very good players throughout the field. And I forget one of their midfielders who scored, I think, a big tally against Down. I forget his name. It's gone out of my head now. But they have some excellent players all over the field. And Tom Ballali, or I think that's the name of their manager, Ballali, did an excellent job as well with Carlo. I'll give him a B. I know they necessarily didn't get promoted, but to beat Offaly in the last day as well was a superb achievement for them. And I think Carlo could even go up next year. They'd be my dark horses. They look a very good outfit. Like, they had to, stumble their way in the McDonagh Cup over the last few years after getting relegated from Leinster. But they'll do well next year. They have some very good young players coming through. They have players from the Fitzgibbon Cup doing well. From underage as well for the club championship. So they have nice players, Carlo. I'd give them a B. I think they did excellent this year to beat Offaly, to beat Down the way they did as well. So yeah, I'd give them a B.
Yeah. No, I'd go with a B as well. Like, I think all in all, like a good performance, sort of in the back end of the champ, or of the Joe McDonagh Cup. Like, they gave a good rally from it in the end, and lots of very, very good quality in the county, and finishing up on a high. So I would agree with that point of view. Moving on, then we've got Down, and very good season in my opinion from a Down perspective. Like, they got some big results at different times. I think they beat Kerry, I remember, in the league. And considering, like, Down aren't they aren't a hurling stronghold at all, like, that way, like, but Paul Sheehan, I think, has been very impressive. Daithí Sands is a very good player as well. Like, I mean, a lot to be positive for from a Down perspective. And the fact that they were very, very close to getting into the Joe McDonagh Cup final, I think, is testament to them, really, because how cool would it be if Down did get up to the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship at some point? Have Down and Antrim in there. I think that'd be great for Ulster and great for hurling in general, I think.
It's actually great to see Down and Antrim in the Camogie Senior All-Ireland as well. So, yeah, Ulster hurling, it is rising up, and fair play to them there. Even Schlott, Neil and Derry doing excellent. But as for Down, Paul Sheehan actually went off injured in the Carlow game, I think. So, that was a huge loss to them, maybe a reason why they lost that particular game. I'd give them... It's a tough one with Down, because the season kind of petered out. They lost to Carlow. They beat Kerry early on in the season, who got to the final. So that was a good result for them. They then lost, I think, to Offaly and Antrim. They then got survival by beating Meath on the final day. They nearly got promoted to Division 1. That was a huge thing for Down. They got beaten easily by Westmeath in the end. But you see the way Westmeath performed in the McCarthy Cup, they did excellent. So that's probably no shame to Down, really. The way they performed, I'd probably give them an A. I know it may be a bit too nice for Down, but the way they developed, the way they put Ulster hurling on the map, Paul Sheehan's been excellent. Daithí Sands has been excellent for play. Mark Fisher has been excellent. I think he was a free taker from quarterback against Carlow. Like, that was incredible to see to a certain extent. But yeah, I'd give him an A because of the way they promoted Ulster hurling, and their manager, their manager, I think it's Ronan Sheehan is the manager's name. I think he's done an absolutely excellent job with Down, and it wouldn't be absolutely unreal, actually, to see Down and Antrim in the Liam McCarthy Cup. That'd be incredible to see, just to rise the profile of Ulster hurling. But yeah, overall, I'd give him an A.
Yeah, Ronan Sheehan is the manager there, so you're spot on there. But no, it would be brilliant. I think it's great. Like, and it's the same in football as well. Like, you want to see new teams getting up there, new teams being competitive. Like, I do think it can get quite boring when you have the same teams all the time, same teams in Leinster, same teams in Munster. I think it'd be great to see teams like Down, Kerry sort of get up there and be competitive. So I've gone for a B with Down. Like, but then again, it's been an excellent season, I think, in my opinion. Moving on to Kerry, then. I suppose your favourite neighbours down there in Cork. Oh, I think I was muted there, was I?
I think you were muted, yeah. I
don't know. Yeah, it just came up that I was muted there for some reason. Must be a Kerry fan tuning in here or something. I don't know how I ended up getting muted. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who can control that. But yeah, and I was actually giving Kerry praise. I was saying that you have to praise Kerry because they had a very, very good season. Like, I mean, they fought back from almost a near impossible situation where it looked like they weren't going to get to a Joe McDonagh Cup final, but in the end they did. And look, they gave Antrim a fairly good go as well.
Just when Kerry were doing so well in the duels, getting to the Joe McDonagh final and win the Ireland football, and then one of their fans do that. I mean, Jesus, what a way to ruin the season. But jeez. But yeah, I'm a fan of Kerry Hurling for years. Really, I want them to develop really, mainly down to the fact I want them to concentrate more on football, or hurling, should I say, more than football. They've brought in a few Limerick lads. They've done some extra work there. They've brought actually Mikey Boyle to the defence, which is a massive stroke for Stephen Blumphy. Will Stephen Blumphy actually stay now that the Waterford manager position is vacant? I know we're talking in this podcast about managerial merry-go-rounds, but it's the world we live in at the moment in hurling, unfortunately. But look, for Kerry, I gave him an A last year because of the size of Kerry hurling. They reached the Joe McDonagh Cup final. Oh, Kerry fans are going to hate me for this, so I'm going to give him a B. Because, 3 Joe McDonagh Cup finals in a row, you would have thought they would have won one by now. But albeit they've played Antrim twice and they've played Westmeath. So very good sides they played against. But at the same time, losing 3 finals in a row, would you really give them an A in normal circumstances? So for that reason, I'd probably give them a B. But again, good progression on Stephen Blumphy. And honestly, I hope they go up to Liam McCarthy for once. Really hope they go up. And I hope to God now they don't play someone like a Tipperary in a Munster playoff. Just get them up to Leinster or get them up to Munster automatically. I mean, that's the way to go for hurling. That's the way to improve Kerry hurling over the next few years. But overall, I'd probably give them a B because of losing 3 finals in a row.
Yeah, Dylan says he was the Kerry fan there that was interrupting our show there. So fair enough. But yeah, B is fair, and yeah, I think so. Like, I think you can't really argue against that from a Kerry perspective. And yeah, like, it's one of them where, because they've come so close to winning the Joe McDonagh, like they've got to 2 Joe McDonagh Cup final, or 3 Joe McDonagh Cup finals in the last couple of seasons. They're coming very, very close, but can't quite get over the line. But clearly not too far away at the minute. Anyways, we then have Meath, who were relegated from the Joe McDonagh Cup, finished bottom in the end. I suppose it's a hard one really with Meath, because they're not hurling stronghold. Like, let's be honest, they're majority football, and I think they've done very well, to be fair, in the last couple of seasons to actually be in the Joe McDonagh Cup and to be competing here. And we've seen them sort of pull out some big wins in the past, beating the likes of Kildare when they were looking very good, and a couple of wins against Kerry in the past. But yeah, a hard one really. Like, I suppose you would have to say F, but it does feel a bit harsh at the same time, because, like, really, what can you expect really from Meath in that kind of regards,
Yeah, exactly. I feel very dirty for giving them an F, because it is the hurling stronghold. They don't care about hurling in Meath, and Davy Risman will tell you all about that. But yeah, it's the reason. Like, Jack Regan really is the player that they look to, and he scored most of their points this year. It was kind of like they did belong in the Joe McDonagh Cup years this year, and a load of them sides were just ahead of them. That was the point, and they were kind of lucky to stay up last year, so it was coming. I'd be nice to Meath. I know as a Cork fan I don't particularly like Meath, but I'd give him a D. Because like there's an argument there. They don't belong in the Joe McDonagh Cup. Maybe they're at their level now next year where they can develop even better. So yeah, Jack Regan and the whole crew could develop even more in the Christy Ring Cup next year. But for now, I'd probably give him a D despite relegation.
Yeah, it's a hard one really. It is a difficult one. Rory says, when does the club championship start? There are a lot of club championships that are starting in the next couple of weeks. The Dublin Senior Football Championship starts next week, so that will certainly be interesting. And I will be releasing a video actually during the week predicting every club football championship. So yeah, that's certainly going to be an interesting one. Make no mistake about that. Certainly going to ruffle a few feathers, so we'll see how that one goes down. But yeah, I suppose last but not least, then we have Offaly. And Offaly, yeah, difficult one. Like, finished 4th in the end in the Joe McDonagh Cup. We're very, very close to getting to the Joe McDonagh Cup final, losing to Carlow on the last day. Obviously coming up from the Christy Ring last season, Mick Fennelly, who's obviously stepped away as well. So I suppose a disappointing season in the end from an Offaly perspective, but then again, probably just going to be a lot more sort of slower progress maybe than we initially thought.
Yeah, I suppose so. Like a lot of Offaly fans were thinking they'd go up straight for the Joe McDonagh Cup, straight away for the Christy Rains and the Liam McCarthy. It wasn't that way. They nearly did it. After that. They beat Kerry in Austin Sack Park, and they were just on the cusp, excuse me, of getting to the final. But yeah, they lost to Carlow in the end, and they ended their season on a sour with Michael Findlay leaving. That was a bit of a sour taste in Offaly fans' mouths. But it's a tough one with Offaly because they came up for the Christy Ring Cup recently, but at the same time, with the players, with the tradition that Offaly have, you kind of expected them to go up. So to be in the middle, I'll give them a B, just to be fair. Look, they had a good season. It was progression. They recently got up for the Christy Ring Cup. And look, it'll be interesting to see who they get now for Offaly. There's rumours Davy Fitz will come in. We don't know about that. But it'll be what a story that would be actually if Davy Fitz went to Offaly. That would be something to turn up for the books. Like, the Joe McDonagh Cup, a lot of people will be tuning into that competition next year if David Fitz gets in. So it'll be interesting to see that. But overall, a B. But will David Fitz going into the Joe McDonagh Cup produce ratings?
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting one. Like, obviously seen those rumors as well. Like, and yeah, like it would be one of them though. Like, going to Offaly, like realistically, like what can he achieve there? Like, I know like he could win the John McDonagh Cup, get them into the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship, but is the quality there to compete with the likes of Dublin, Wexford, Kilkenny, Galway? They do have a good underage structure, and there is good young players coming through at the minute. So maybe Davy is seeing something that maybe we aren't, and he sees the players that are coming through. But it would be an interesting one, all right, seeing him go to Offaly. It would kind of nearly remind me of Jack O'Connor going to Kildare, like, in that kind of same element where maybe he's going there because there's just no other big jobs available at that moment of time, and then once a big job becomes available, he'll take it. But I don't know, like, there are much bigger jobs in there, like, with all due respect to Offaly. I know they're a big, hurling traditional county and all the rest, but there's the Waterford job there. Obviously Dublin has been mentioned. We discussed that before. Kilkenny even. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of other jobs there, but him going to Offaly, look, it would be very interesting.
It would be very interesting. And it will get a load of Offaly fans inside the stadium just to see Davy perform antics on the sideline. But on a serious note, look, it will develop the Offaly players, definitely. There's some very good young players coming through. Like you mentioned, Adam Screedy, he was full of praise of him during the minor final coverage on RT. So, I think he will do well with Offaly. Will he get along with Michael Doyle? That's a discussion for another day if he gets the job, of course. But should be very, very interesting if he does get the job. I personally think Dublin would be the perfect fit for Davy. But look, he's his own man. He decides his own decisions, and we'll let him decide, and we'll have to keep guessing.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, look, we'll wrap this up here. Anyways, cheers to anyone who tuned in. If you could smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, be very much appreciated. We will be doing one of these for football at some stage as well, maybe in the next week or so. So do stay tuned for that one. And I suppose if anyone's looking to find your own podcast, Matthew, where can they find it?
They can find a Spotify, YouTube now. Going up the ladder of subscribers now, so hopefully you can subscribe to my YouTube channel there. The new Instagram again is J__Statsman2, J_Statsman on Twitter and Facebook as well. And search me all over as well. I'll be doing articles as well for the Southern Star as well down in West Cork. So keep an eye out for that too.
Perfect, Matthew. Well, cheers for coming on. And thank you for anyone who tuned into the stream. And we will talk to you all soon.